Welcome back to the Indycar preview show. I'm Casey Campbell, and above me or next to me is the channel's Indycar expert. Of course, that's Colin Copa of Twin Checkers. How's it going, bud? How was the Indy 500?
It was a blast. Can't say enough about how cool it was. And congrats to Joseph Newgarden. What a win.
Yeah. Okay, so let's I know there's a lot to recap from that race. How did you think it went from a racing side of things?
So I think Pato Award was right. Early in the practice, everyone was very positive about the passing that was available to be
Yeah.
done. But he was very skeptical the whole month about, can a car actually 5 or 6 or 7 back in line actually make progress forward? And the answer to that was really no. Unless a gap showed up where you got a little bit of clean air and were able to pull off a move and kind of drive away. And that's been hard for the course for basically every Indy 500 since I want to say about 2018 when the new aero kit came out. The post manufacturer aero kit era.
Yes.
Um, but I don't think that hurt the racing too bad. It was still a very exciting race. There was still strategy that played out. And I mean, you can't get enough of those last 30 laps of actual competitive driving. That's some of the best racing you'll get anywhere on the earth this year. Um, and I think you're probably going to ask the next question about that red flag controversy, right? So
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll save it for that. But I think the racing was very good, and very clean. But you saw lots of aggressive moves that I don't think we've seen. I think Pato O'Ward taking himself out of the race,
Right.
trying to pass Ericsson, that was reminiscent of Sato on Franchitti a decade ago. But I think that speaks to, just how much it means to win at Indianapolis. Pato had it in his hands last year, let it get away, was probably trying to set up a pass on the backstretch and never got the chance due to a caution. So this year he wasn't going to take no for an answer, and I think you saw a lot of drivers make very aggressive moves that they might not make otherwise, just because that's how much it means.
Yeah. Yeah, since you mentioned it, why not just talk about the red flag stuff. Just go ahead. I'll give you the floor on that one.
So yeah, if you're new to IndyCar, the scheduled distance is how long the race goes. It can end sooner if there's rain or weather or for whatever reason, darkness for tracks that don't have lights. But if it's a 500-mile race, it ends at the 500th mile. It doesn't go any more than that. So when a caution showed up late in the race, due to an incident on the front stretch, there was a 4-lap window where the race would end. Um, IndyCar decided to throw a red flag on lap with 3 laps to go, or with 2 laps to go. So all the cars pulled in pit road, and then decided coming out of pit lane, they go through turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, and then they hit the green flag for one last lap under green. Um, Drama, controversy.
That's one way to put it.
Marcus Ericsson was leading at the time, last year's champion, and he felt that the race should have ended under caution. That it was unsafe to do that, and of course he would, because he was leading, and that would mean he has an easy pathway to be the first back-to-back winner since Castroneves did it 20 years ago. Um, Everyone else in the field, pretty much, it seems like, was on board with trying to get one more lap under green. I even saw some veteran drivers saying you could have called that red flag earlier, done the same thing, and gotten 2 laps under green. So that would have been maybe a little more fair to Marcus, so he gets another lap to maybe try and pass, and it seemed pretty clear he was going to get past there. Um, I saw some people trying to compare this to Abu Dhabi 2021 with Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in the F1 World Championship.
Yes.
There's a variety of factors that make this not the same thing. Obviously, there was a World Championship on the line, um, multiple rules overlaps, things that happened that should not have happened. But I think it was probably the right call. I do wish that red flag would have come a lap sooner. I do think that coming out of pit road to the green flag is something that's unprecedented, that I don't see. It may have happened on a road course in IndyCar history before, but
Yeah.
those are big tracks where you have lots of time to warm up the tires. 14 corners, that in a Road America, no one would care. But red flags, that was 3 red flags at the end of the Indy 500. I think that was the first time there were multiple non-weather related red flags in an Indianapolis 500, and there were 3 all in the last 30 laps. That's the way the series is going forward. I'm okay with it. But this is a relatively new thing for IndyCar. trying to pause the race instead of letting it run around under caution where you're burning off laps, which I'm in full support of. You're still running to the scheduled distance. You're not going to add a bunch of laps and run into Daytona 500 situations where you're running it to 530 miles, even just trying to get the race in under green. You know when it's going to end. You're just hitting the pause button. I think that's fine. But I do think it's probably worth it for series officials to talk about what's protocol for this. Let's flesh this out a little bit more so we can use it at Indianapolis going forward, with a little more clarity, and at other tracks. Because I think Iowa, any other oval, this is a strategy you can use and race control to create exciting finishes. And I don't think it's that unfair. If you flesh it out a little bit more and be like, here's a protocol, instant red if this happens, I think that's fine. And the one thing also that I think has been left out of this discussion is the gap on the front stretch was very narrow. Ferrucci was being a little aggressive, trying to prove that he was in the lead or whatever, but there were not room for two cars on the front stretch. Right. So I think you could have called the red flag way sooner just so safety vehicles could respond, because it was kind of a low speed impact on the front stretch wall, but you never know if someone's hurt, a broken leg. Steph Wilson broke a vertebrae earlier in the week. So you always have to be careful in those situations, especially with IndyCar. So I'm all for safety in that way. But I think a little more race control discussion, just kind of pre-planning what's a red flag protocol going to look like. And with that little bit of more planning, I'm perfectly fine with this happening across the board going forward.
Yeah. Obviously, I think we covered the two biggest ones, and then, well, let's cover the other big story. The tire that went over the pit wall, and Kyle Kirkwood's car going upside down, which was also one of the red flag cautions. Yeah,
that was a violent impact, and that's one of the first in-car cameras that stayed intact, I think. For the entire ride down the turn 2 and down the backstretch. That was just harrowing footage. I think there's a lot to be said about people who just kind of watch racing for the dramatic drama kind of crashing like that. But you see something like that, you remember that there's someone inside there and they've got to go on that ride. And it's a huge testament to safety that he just hopped right up and said, get me the out of this thing on the radio. But he was there. And even with that little like subconscious flick of the visor too, watching his eyes as the track is like ready to grate your helmet off, that was just something I might never forget. That's just one of the craziest in-car camera footage I've ever seen. So glad he's okay. But yeah, the tire, it shot off and hit poor Snowball, the white Chevy Cruze parked in the infield, or just outside of turn 2. I mean, very lucky escape that shot the gap between the turn 2 grandstands and the turn 2 suites, basically where no one was standing, because that could have been very tragic had it not. But IndyCar's investigating. They'll do a good job. They're one of the best series in the world at trying to figure out what went wrong. Any of those major series, F1 and NASCAR, do a really good job of trying to backtrack and see what went wrong. How do we fix it going forward? IndyCar said it wasn't a wheel tether that broke. And if you look at the footage, there's definitely stuff sticking out of the wheel as it's kind of rotating through the air. So it certainly appears that something behind the tether sheared off just due to the violent nature and speed of the impact. So I'm no mechanical engineer, so I'm sure someone out there has a better explanation for the parts and pieces that were broken, but still something that hasn't happened in my lifetime, born in 2000, believe it or not. But seeing a tire fly off towards the stands like that's definitely scary. But it's one of the evils of motor racing, right? There's parts moving at high speed, and when they shoot off of cars, you never know where they're going to end up. That's why the catch fence is there, to keep you, the fan, safe from the action on track and to keep drivers from not shooting into the crowd. But hopefully they can figure out what went wrong there and try to strengthen that area to prevent something like that happening going forward.
And also an update on that. I believe the track is supplying the person that owns Snowball with a brand new car. So that's good. That's if you follow Indianapolis Motor Speedway or know Doug Bowles, that shouldn't surprise anybody, because that of course, Indianapolis Motor Speedway, one of the best, some of the best people work there, and obviously Doug Bowles is one of them. So it's good stuff there. All right. Before we get to Detroit, some of the guys that really impressed you on the day, and there were a lot of them.
AJ Foyt Racing, top to bottom. Santino Ferrucci putting it third. Say what you will about his history and his personality and whatever. That was a fantastic drive for a team that really hasn't shown that kind of speed in years, maybe even decades. So that was just fantastic to see. Joseph Newgarden coming back from 17th on the grid to win that race. That was impressive. Just can't beat it. When you've got a fast car in Indianapolis and you can work your way forward, you can win it from anywhere. I think Marcus Ericsson showing up at the end too was good, proving that he still got it even when he wasn't the fastest Ganassi. He kind of was a step back in qualifying and all that. Only like 17 cars finished on the lead lap. There was a high rate of attrition. So I think there were good stories in there. Like Oliveira McLaren was very fast, and I'd like to give them credit, but you got to finish the race to get that. And kind of pivoting to the next step, people that could have stepped it up and have a lot to look forward to next year to try and have that redemption are Pato crashing out. Rosenquist, that was kind of a dirty air situation. So really just unlucky timing for that Newgarden pass that ended up putting Kirkwood upside down. Kirkwood was charging the front at the end. He was the fastest Andretti car, faster than even Colton Herta. Romain Grosjean will want redemption, I think. Maybe the third time he can make it the full 500 miles. And all of Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan racing. The fastest car in qualifying was Catherine Legg in the one-off, which was a fantastic effort. But then she was involved in an incident on Monday, had to rebuild the car, and then had an incident on pit road. And speaking of pit road, Brinus VK and Alex Palou, I think they both continued on in the race and had respectable finishes, but they very well could have kept the rest of the field at bay and fought it out the rest of the day. But you can't do that when you're running into each other on pit road. So
yeah,
storylines from top to bottom. Just one of those days.
Yeah, and then TK closes out his 500 last 500 by going in the grass and passing somebody.
He's got a highlight reel from his last race. You know, if you're not going to win it, make them know you were there, and the turn 2 grass will know he was there for at least the next couple months.
Oh yeah, big time. And you'll still see TK wandering around Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He might not be racing in the Indy 500. Well, he'll still be racing. He'll be racing something. I know he's got a couple SRX races later in the year, but this is his last 500 or so, we think. I don't know. There's still a chance.
Yes.
He comes out. You never know with him. Yeah. So, okay. So let's move on to Detroit. Lots of interesting things there. This is, of course, the first time that it is away from Belle Isle, and for the first time in 32 years, it is on that, and it is in downtown Detroit. So that's a major plus there. I know it's from talking with many people about it. It's a fun event, and should be a very, very fun race. But who are you looking for? What are you looking forward to watching that race?
Split pit road.
Yeah,
split pit road. It's one of the first in major auto racing in the world, I'd say. I don't know of another time this has been done. When drivers pull into pit road, they will either be on the left or the right, but they'll be happening on both sides.
Yeah.
There'll be a large blue line down the middle of pit road. Don't cross it. And then at pit exit, you got to blend in with everyone like you usually do. But that'll be exciting. Never seen anything like that before. And then part 2, it's a very fast, very tight street circuit. There'll be lots of great passing opportunities down Jefferson Avenue, that long stretch. But also there's parts that are as narrow as some of those Nashville Grand Prix sections after the bridge, where you got to get in line and hold your foot down to keep pace. So it'll be really exciting. I think Team Penske and Andretti have kind of had it figured out, especially Andretti on the street circuits this year. Romain Grosjean was really fast at St. Pete and kind of had that slip away from him. Marcus Ericsson was there to pick up the pieces, but Andretti was the faster team that day. Kyle Kirkwood winning at Long Beach continued that trend. So I think look for Andretti and then Team Penske. Will Power won at Belle Isle last year. Different track. Can't really compare it, but it was a street circuit with the same kind of parts and pieces. So consider that if you're trying to pick favorites this weekend. But if you're fast in the IndyCar series anywhere, you can take advantage of kind of a race with a lot of unknowns. So look for Ganassi, or someone like Callum Islet. He was very fast at St. Petersburg and Long Beach. And Juncos was one of the stories of May, and just kind of like their perseverance, like having to completely rebuild his car for speedway trim is something that they were not prepared to do, and he still made the field and had respectable effort. So look for him to maybe push for the top five, maybe the podium if things go his way. And of course, we don't really know what the tire wear will look like. Will it be a red race or a black race? Will it be a fuel mileage kind of gamble to the end? It's 100 laps, but the track's 1.7 miles. I don't know. Work out the math. But it should be a race with a lot of unknowns. And next year's preview will be a little more fleshed out than this one, I think, across the board from all media outlets, because it's just we don't know what to expect.
Yeah, this is the only brand new circuit that's going to be on the schedule this year. So yeah, we'll just have to see how it is. I mean, okay, so let's go. Let's do picks. I'm sure all those Chevy drivers, and especially Team Penske, will especially have the added pressure on them, because now we said if you just look up at that big tall building that's like literally right there, that's GM's headquarters. So
Global headquarters, yeah.
That's GM's, General Motors global headquarters. So that's a big event for all those Chevy teams. So that's when anytime, like when obviously NASCAR or IMSA, I mean IndyCar, NASCAR for that matter too, and IMSA, or anytime any series comes to Detroit or MIS, it's a lot of added pressure for those Chevy teams, as well, and also on the NASCAR side, on those Ford or when Stellantis was in there. It's any time that any of the big three raced, there's obviously that added pressure, because obviously they're all here. And obviously, literally, this one is it's part of the course. It's on Jefferson Avenue. So it's
the winner's circle will be at the foot of General Motors global headquarters.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. I know that Penske Entertainment Group has been really looking forward to this big event. So Indy Next is there. Again, another unpredictable race. No one's ever raced here before. There's going to be 2 races here. So who do you got?
Last year, Linus Lundqvist swept the weekend and won both the races. But again, that's a track that isn't on the schedule this year. It's Detroit, but it's completely different. Matteo Nannini completely dominated the race at Indianapolis last time the next cars were out. But
remember, there's 2.
That's right. And I don't think Indianapolis reflects what Detroit's going to be like at all. That's a completely different track with completely different elevation changes, completely different surface, completely different everything. Nolan Siegel, he can take one of them.
Okay.
My bet. I think it's an HMD weekend. I'll go with Daniel Frost. I know that picking against Christian Rasmussen, the points leader, but I think spreading the wealth in HMD is possible. Who you got?
Yeah, that's of course, Daniel won at St. Pete. So let's go with Daniel race 1, and then let's go with Christian Rasmussen race 2. So I mean, HMD's been on it this year. I think there's got, I mean, at some point, Andretti's gonna win a race at some point. I just don't know when, but HMD, and obviously the Juncos team really kind of dominated that part of it. And so we'll have to see what those 2 cars have, and see what the Able cars and the Cape cars have as well. So should be a fun weekend there. All right, let's go to the big one, IndyCar on the Detroit Grand Prix. Who wins this race?
That's a great question. You mentioned Chevy at home, basically. Can it have a home victory, something that is so coveted in motorsports? It's hard to pick against Andretti. Colton Herta on a street circuit, very fast. Has some issues with finishing those races, but he'll let you know he was there. Romain Grosjean has been very fast. Finished second a lot. Can this be the weekend he pulls it off, or is it a Team Penske weekend or a McLaren weekend with Pato O'Ward, Alex Rossi? He dominated Long Beach a couple years ago, so he can get around a street circuit very quickly. I think it ultimately is gonna be, can anyone beat Andretti? And unless there's an incident at the front, which I'm not going to predict, that's not going to be happening this weekend. I think Colton Herta, Romain Grosjean, and whoever the highest finishing team Penske driver is, whether that's Newgarden, Power, or McLaughlin, that'll be your podium.
Okay. Yeah, so let's see. I'll take a different Honda team. I'm gonna go with Ganassi. I'll take Marcus Ericsson. So yeah, because
Nice redemption arc for after the disappointment last weekend.
And of course his first win, first IndyCar win came at Detroit, but that of course was at Belle Isle. So yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. That split pit road. I know. Okay, so I know that Bristol Motor Speedway has the split pit road, but one is on each side, and there's obviously do that, but the entrance for both of them is not on the same side. So it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens. It's like, hey, they're gonna be congested just like downtown Detroit.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to pass a blue line. So if you go to the right and you're supposed to be on the left, you gotta know their lap and come back in. So it'll be drivers will have to be on their A game.
Yeah, someone's gonna. I feel like someone's gonna mess that up. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, practice today. Qualifying, of course, will be tomorrow, and then the race on Sunday, and it's all on NBC. And Peacock. So there you go. All right. Well, Colin, thanks so much for coming on and talking with us. We'll catch you in a few weeks when we talk Road America.
Sounds good.